Next, the year 2020 is coming to a close. Now, let's wrap up the year by talking about some of the entrepreneurs to watch out for in 2021. Now, the first one on my list is Brian Chesky, who's the CEO of Airbnb. Of course, when everything hit and travel shut down, leisure shut down, of course, Airbnb struggled. They were right in the middle of branching out into other markets, not just actual locations. I'm talking about other revenue streams for them. Then suddenly everything else shut down that was related to travel. And they hurt. The CEO, of course, had to go out and make some tough decisions to just keep everything afloat. He had to take $1 billion in debt. Fast forward to December. You all heard about this. Airbnb goes public. They were targeting a $30 to $40 billion valuation, and they end up at 100 billion plus. Now, with that initial burst from the public offering, what happens in 2021? It'll be exciting to see, because will travel come back? That's question number one. Can they keep up the momentum? Will the demand be so pent up that people would just travel like crazy because they now can work remotely because it's been integrated into the daily routine? Is all things to look out for, and how Brian Chesky will capitalize on these trends and what happens in the next year will be very interesting to look out for. I know for one I will. Now, the second entrepreneur is Jay-Z, Sean Carter, who, just became the chief visionary officer of a cannabis SPAC. Now, if you haven't heard of SPACs, it's essentially a way to list a company, go public with a company that then goes out and buys a company that's private, and that way becomes a publicly traded company. Now, JC has a rich, no pun intended, history in business, starting out as a successful musician, then a record label executive, getting into real estate, art collection, basketball, everything. It seems like whatever Jigga touches turns to gold. But cannabis, I don't know. It's a growing industry for sure. And JC obviously is an idol and a conduit to youth culture and pop culture. Let's see what he can do. There's still, with cannabis, there's a lot of question marks in terms of regulatory things that we cannot see. Will it all be legalized all over the country? And one thing that JC didn't necessarily turn to gold was when he jumped into boxing. And it's sort of been swept under the rug, but he came into boxing a few years ago, and there were a few scandals, a few fighters he signed, lost him a lot of money. He said, you know what, I'm out of here. But every entrepreneur will have to take risk, and you'll have to fail sometimes to improve your processes and do better. Is cannabis the place where he would do better? Is that where it's at for the billionaire music mogul? Time will tell. That's why we'll have to look out for him in 2021. Now, the last one on my list of three is WeWork CEO Sandeep Mathrani. Now, this is really interesting. WeWork was already in dire straits as it was in a perfect world. Then everything shut down and people cut their leases. Now, with WeWork, you take month-to-month leases. People cut it. So in a perfect world, they were already struggling because of their failed IPO and so on and so forth. Now, with work practically shutting down, a lot of co-working companies have been struggling. A lot of local ones have shut down. Notel, one of the larger competitors to WeWork, is facing 21 lawsuits in New York over $10 million in unpaid rent. They're facing evictions. There's just a lot of uncertainty around this whole sub-sector, if you will. But now still, the industry is still bullish on the sector as it is. The whole co-working community element, the industry is bullish on it. But what I will be looking for the CEO of WeWork is, how can he take something that was already struggling and doubling down on the core service. Before WeWork was branching out into residential living, education, creating a We universe. Now he wants to get to work with WeWork and just double down on just that, the work. And one thing to look out for with Sandeep is he used to be the CEO of a publicly traded real estate investment trust. So a real estate company. That was his gig before. So he knows how to run a company of that size. But he's a real estate guy only. It's not about all the extra stuff that we're trying to do. So that will be exciting to look out for. Can he dig deep with his team and WeWork his way out of, this rut? Or will it turn out what many people thought in the beginning that the most hyped startup in the world would remain just that. Hype. But those are the three to look out for. So watch out for what they do in 2021. Jay-Z, Sandeep from WeWork, and Brian Chesky from Airbnb.